Thank you, Julie. So I'm Ali, just in case anyone doesn't recognise me. I've been coming to the church here for 11 years. Some of you ladies might recognise me as part of the Flourish ladies ministry that we have here as well. So it's lovely to be here, and thank you for coming today. So we're currently in a season of looking at encounters with Jesus. And we've been encouraged to pick a passage from the Bible that means something to us. And so I've actually picked one that's quite a small one, and it's about a lady who doesn't actually have a name, and she's known by where she lives and her marital status. And so I'm actually going to talk about the widow of Nain. So if you'd like to turn to or follow the passage up on the overhead, that would be great. So Jesus raises a widow's son. Soon afterwards, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. As he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the town was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." Then he went up and touched the coffin, and those carrying it stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. They were all filled with awe and praised God. "A great prophet has appeared among us," they said. "God has come to help his people." This news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding country. I should have said that comes from Luke 7, verses 11 to 17. So it's quite a small passage, and it's obviously an amazing passage. And you read that, and you think, wow, that is amazing. And the more I looked into this, the more I was just changed and touched by God's compassion and kindness and mercy for this lady. So, as with all miracles, we have to look at the context of the timing and what was happening back then in Jesus' time to kind of understand it. So, a little bit of background about the passage. So, Nain was a small farming village. It was quite small and it was quite poor. There was one single lane, apparently, to this small settling. And it had apparently, possibly at the time, about 34 homes and about 89 villagers. And so at this time that Jesus performed this miracle, the day before, he was in Capernaum, and he'd done another miracle where he'd actually healed a centurion's servant. And the two passages kind of go together, but I focused on this one particularly. It's quite important to sort of look, though, at where Jesus was the day before, because I haven't got a map, but Capernaum and Nain are about 30 miles from each other. And basically, Jesus, the day before, was doing a healing here, and Nain was like quite high up, and that was about 30 miles to get to it. And so he walked with his disciples and a crowd, and that would have taken possibly 1 or 2 days to perform this next miracle that you kind of read and think, wow, what was that, a chance encounter? Did he just kind of rock up and at the gate sort of see this procession and intercept this procession because, he might as well. But actually it was ordained that he actually felt this woman's pain and sensed this woman's misery and helplessness. And the timing was perfect that he made that trip and travelled far to rescue her, essentially. So, so he went 30 miles and quite an arduous walk. We also need to look at the context for this woman. So back in Jesus' time, when the women anyway were kind of quite lowly, let alone when her husband had died and her only son had died as well. So that would have been her source of income. It would have been her whole sort of status has gone even lower. So the reality of widows in that time was desperate. She may have even ended up starving to death. So it was as desperate you could get. And Jesus obviously knew this. So the implications for this lady, she probably thought she'd rather die, I would have thought. What was life going to be like for her? She had a crowd of people with her when she was burying her son. Would that crowd have stayed when the going got tough further down the track? Would they have been with her? They may have been, we don't know. But she didn't have a lot to offer, and she was quite destitute. And in Old Testament culture, it was also believed that when a husband died before old age, that potentially that may have been like God's curse on you. So she was kind of economically, spiritually, and emotionally down and out. So this is what is amazing about this story. So we read, yet Jesus sees her. And I think for me, I was like, wow, this rescue. I mean, Pretty Woman's got nothing on this, It's like, it is a saving. I mean, she probably wouldn't have managed, let's face it. So Jesus has this ability to see the people who society is given up on, that are the lowest of the low. This lady would have been probably seen as kind of quite unclean. He touched the coffin, which would have been in that day like outrageous probably. But Jesus meets people in their dire need, and for the people that like we perhaps shun and sometimes judge. And when I read this, I was like, it's a sort of message to me, how do I see people that aren't like me from different cultures that challenge me a bit, I find a bit irritating? Do I write them off? And I've just been to New Wine with another church, Holy Trinity in Hazelmere, and they did the woman at the well. And I was like, why didn't I pick that one? They covered the woman at the well for 4 days. But the speaker, Paul Langham, was saying that Jesus has this innate ability to sort of traverse kind of the people in power and those, but also see the people that, as a society, they're cast out. And he just challenged to say, let us not write off those that Jesus writes in to his story. So let me see what else I've got. So basically, he knew what was going on for this lady, and he felt an immediate need to travel far and, go then and there to intercept this procession and perform this miracle. And when Jesus' activity here, as well as the miracle he'd just performed, proved his kind of identity. So when this happened, everyone was obviously awestruck and full of faith and joy. But we have to remember that he rescued the one, and he rescued this lady just at the right moment. So what does that mean for us now? What lessons can we find from this story for us? And not many of us, thankfully, have to endure the tragedy of losing a loved one, or a child particularly. But it does say in the Bible, we will all have hard times and we will all have hardship. So whether or not you're going through something now that's really, really difficult, or whether you've had this in your past, or someone very dear to you that's in quite a desperate state, Jesus, he sees us and he knows our needs. So I've got 4 little points that I've pulled out from this story that I feel are relevant to us today. So just as Jesus came to the widow when she probably felt quite forgotten, overlooked, devastated, he'll come to us as well. And this stuff is really hard, isn't it? Because when you are going through a real dark time, it is so painful. When Jesus, it's painful. And sometimes you don't know how you're going to cope. And I suppose I feel I can kind of relate to this story in the Bible, this encounter, because I've known Jesus through a very dark time in my life. So 3 years ago, sadly, my marriage ended, and we separated quite probably fair to say unexpectedly and quite suddenly. And it felt like overnight my rug had been pulled from me. I had to leave. I had to leave with my boy, who was 7. And we'd just borrowed quite a lot of money to do up our house in Amersham. And I couldn't live there. It wasn't in a state I could stay there. So I was like, I don't actually know where we're going to go. It was quite desperate, really. And I didn't know what to do. And my first cry was like, help. I didn't really know how to pray. I was just almost like in a state of trauma, I suppose, or shock. How am I going to do this? And a little bit, what will people think, actually? And I'll go on to that in a minute. But basically, I pretty quickly knew that here I am in this situation. What am I going to do about it? There's a part of me that wanted just to not wake up, if I'm honest. I could have done with just kind of it just not being my reality. But the sun came up and I sort of did wake up. And I'm a mum and I'm a midwife and I come to this church and I love Jesus. And I thought, right, this is what I sing about. Actually, this is what I believe in. I believe that God is with me. He knows my needs. And so I made a decision that I was going to dig in deep. So the first thing I did was to talk to some trusted friends about what was going on. And I think that's quite, you need to be wise with that. Sometimes these things aren't going to be a thing, but it was a thing. And it did eventually sort of go quite far down the road. And I'm now divorced and doing things on my own. And they prayed with me. And they also said, right, what do you need? What do you need? Where are you going to live? I was like, well, I don't know. And I suppose my story, I really want to give glory to God throughout, right from the beginning, because I really believe that he looked after me in every area of my life. A couple from this church were going on holiday, so I stayed in their house with Sam. I was like, don't touch anything. I got food. People, basically I had shelter. I prayed because my heart was, I almost felt like at the time I might have had a heart attack. If any of you have known what it's like to suddenly feel, just like everything is just like shifted. You've got to tell yourself to breathe. It's as basic as that. And it's like, and I'm thinking, right, let's think about what the Bible says about me. God will never leave me or forsake me. He loves me. He's going to provide for me. He is not going to let me down. So that was my base, actually. And I said that to Sam. I said, Sam, we're going to be all right. I said, because I love you, but even more importantly, God loves us, and he's faithful, and we are going to make it. And so, but basically, I had to kind of use and wisdom, really, as to kind of got prayer for myself. I talk to people. You can't do this stuff alone, I think. So I had health. I worked. I didn't have a day off work because I felt like actually my job as a midwife is also my calling. And I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'm going to go every day and see woman by woman and get through the day. And that is, I literally sort of thought, I don't know what to pray, but I remember thinking, give me today my daily bread. And I've learned, actually, to live a little bit more in the moment and not to worry too much about what I don't know about. So I've learned a lot of lessons, and God's been so faithful and kind and generous to me. Because whilst the situation, I've heard, Julian often says, the situation sometimes and often doesn't change, but God meets your needs within that situation, and it's not a hopeless situation. So that is kind of my story on this. So I do believe he sees us. We matter to him. You matter to him. And I don't know why, but I felt like I really wanted to say that summer, for some people, the season of summer can be quite difficult. I think sometimes we're sold a little bit like everything on Facebook. Everyone's going away with their families and all having a jolly good time. And life looks all about barbecues and fun. But actually, for some people, it really isn't. And so I just really felt that God wanted me to say that, to say he sees you. He knows what you're going through. It's not always great at summer, and I get it. The next part was he always has perfect timing. And obviously for the story, Jesus met with that woman right at the right time. That wasn't by chance. There's no coincidences there. God knew what he was doing. And I've just put down here, let God be God. We're all different, and God will deal with people differently. And it's not always instantaneous, is it? In this story, God actually, he saw the need, he acted, and he sort of saw the need, acted, and healed very quickly. But for some of us with our stories, we perhaps don't have the then God did, and we're living in the kind of, I don't know the answer yet, and this is still really hard. But I think we've got to trust. We've got to trust that God is God, and it's in the journey. And I believe that when we're waiting for timing and we're waiting for answers, we need to lean in and just be still sometimes and know that God is God. Psalm 46, verse 1 and 2, God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble, so we will not fear. And just on little things about timing as well, I think that God is in the small things. My Sam, 4 months before, sadly, my marriage all sort of fell apart, my boy went to a boarding school in London. He's a chorister at St. Paul's Cathedral, and it was a decision that we made together, and it's a good place for him. But 2 times a year, we have to take all his kit back to school. Duvet, pillow, musical instruments. It's quite a big deal. Most people do it in 2s. But, my reality is that sometimes I've just got to crack on and get on with it. And so it's me and Sam. And 11-year-old boy sometimes just sort of, I've got a bag, And so I'm there like a pack horse from like almost my head down to here with everything, as well as a carry case. And, it's probably never going to be the greatest day, having to do all that sort of thing. And I remember getting to the tube, and someone just was like, just whipped down the staircase one side, came up the other side, and just helped me out. And he just brought all my stuff up. And I just thought, that was great. Thank you, that's really kind. I remember coming back to speak to someone. I said, it was really great, actually. Someone helped me on like a double thing. And she said, that was God. That was Jesus. The timing for you. You needed help there, and he provided someone. And I was like, that's right. You're right. And I started sort of almost like stopping saying, God, that was like really weird, like a bit of a coincidence, to go, this is Jesus intervening for me in the small ways that make a difference. And I think it's often the small ways. Actually, it's not necessarily these big things. So, Jesus has perfect timing. He knows what he's doing, and let God be God, and let's trust in him. The next point I want to talk about is being encouraged. So when you're going through something quite stressful, and it could even be actually that you just feel quite insignificant and overlooked and a bit discouraged. It doesn't need to be a big thing. But I think I would suggest, and I would sort of say from my own experience, like be encouraged, get every bit of encouragement you can. Some of the hardest things to do when you're going through a bit of a crappy time is to come through those doors at church, I think. There's part of me that thought, I don't think I want to go. I don't think I want to, maybe I'll give it a miss. What, is anyone looking at me? What will people think? And actually, again, I was like, am I going to miss out on something that God's got for me because I'm worried about what people think of me? No, the chances are they're not anyway. So my one thing as well is go to church. It may not be this church, but basically don't miss out on God's amazing, divine love, and sort of there's an atmosphere when you come to church, I think. And so I'm like, I'm going to go to the worship night. What else is going on? I joined a small group. I joined Maureen and George, Cat and Lee's small group. I'm not a massive small group person, but I was like, I need support here. So, You know that phrase where they say, do what is good, do what is right, do what is holy? I was like, that's what I need. I just need to do good things. I didn't really know what to do, but I knew what not to do, which was don't overdo the gin. Do you know what I mean? Don't go running into the arms of another man to get validity of like how I'm all right. I'm all right, actually. No, I was like, right, okay. I'm going to have a go at praying. And I said, I don't know how to pray, so I'm going to pray the Lord's Prayer. And it doesn't matter how you start, does it? Also, I got out things that people have prayed over my life. I've had words of encouragement, and I've had sort of, I've got them in here, actually. And I'm getting them out. I wrote things on Post-it notes. So affirmations, worship for me is a big one. I can come in here and just the words and the songs and the spirit, I'm just then in tears. And I've never got a tissue. I'm not one of those peeps, unfortunately. Fortunately, there's always some helpful mums around me, some good mums that have got it all going on, that give me a tissue. So I used to just come and just look like a blubbering mess. And Jane, I'd see you up here and I'd go, here I am again. But that didn't matter. It didn't matter, and I just kept coming. So attend church, I think. I put encourage yourself, write Post-it notes. Reading, somehow like the stillness of my situation actually gave me a bit more chance to read. And I read sort of books that encouraged me. I read books just for pure joy. And I thought, why do I save books for holiday read? Let's go for it. So I started reading and just enjoying a bit of spare time. Other things that encourage me are New Wine. I go every year. And it's just an amazing time for a bit of a reset. You don't have to wait for a big thing like New Wine, but for me, it's something that's quite special. And my Sam, even though it's quite tiring camping, isn't it? But I say to him every year, do you want to come next year? And he says, yeah, I want to come every year, Mum. And I'm like, I'm coming just for you, babes, as well. Because there's pain for yourself, but then when you've got pain for your child, that is like, ugh. So I want to put every good thing in for Sam. Flourish, if you don't know about Flourish, we have about 4 or 5 times a year. We have events here for our ladies. It's extended out to other churches and anyone we know. And it's basically been set up by Jane and a small team. We want to bless and encourage women. Recently, we've plugged quite into kind of friendships because we realise that friendships are really important. So we've done quite a bit on friendships. So look out for our next one in September, if you'd like to come. So you get my drift. So whatever it takes, encouragement, encourage yourself, get on some worship at home. Be honest with people, really raw. I mean, what's the point of not being? I'm quite kind of an out there girl, but those trusted friends, I'm like, this is how I'm feeling. Will you pray for me? You just got to do life with the people that you trust, that do you good and that don't pull you down. And I also, on the Be Encouraged, so I got a little poster from one of my mates that just came through the door. And it's things like this. And I think I got that because I call everyone babe. But either way, I got encouragement from it, and it's up on my kitchen wall. So, yeah, it's cool. Do you know what? You start to see the tide turning. It can be a long time. But there's lots of good things that can happen even through the pain. And I think that God is amazing. He can actually you can experience joy even though you're going through pain. And, I am now coming out of this dark patch, having learned a lot. And my heart actually is that I can be in a place where I can encourage others. And that sort of leads me on that we do hear from God. God sees us and he speaks to us. But for most people, it's through other people that God speaks through. So I guess that kind of harps back to my wanting to come and be around my family here. But let's be people that see maybe the marginalised, maybe feel and have sense of someone needed a bit of a lift, someone needing a bit of love. And, it's interesting that we've got a holiday club because for me, nothing speaks Jesus more than someone seeing my 11-year-old boy. And this is what Holiday Club is about. Jesus actually didn't say to this woman, do you believe, do you have any faith? Do you believe in me or not? He blessed her anyway. And he was, he just by his mercy rescued her. And I think that, let's see others as God sees them. Wherever we are, I believe we get small opportunities absolutely every day. I think I've got 2 minutes to just explain a quick one. So recently in my antenatal sort of clinic, there was a young doctor who's doing that little bit where she's not going to be a GP, but she does still do quite a lot. There's a word for it, and I can't think. Anyway, she was there, and she was being ripped into a little bit by the practice manager in front of everyone, all the receptionists. And I was there just making a quiet coffee. And I thought, I don't feel comfortable with this. So she was there, and she didn't have a placement. She didn't know who she could sit with, and there were apparently no doctors free to have her. And I thought, well, I could have her. So I said, do you want me to take her? And they went, oh, yeah, thanks, Alison. Anyway, I got her in. She was sobbing, this girl, because she had been quite sort of humiliated, really. Fortunately, my first woman had delivered her baby, so she wasn't going to come, which was fabulous. And so I let this lady cry out, and I had a tissue. This was good times. And I said, what's going on? Tell me. So she went through her little story about how it was really difficult to finish this course, and, she'd come up quite against it, and there were some quite hard people. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, you can sit with me today. And she spoke to me. She went, please don't say anything. Please don't say anything. I don't want to make it any worse. I said, I won't. And then I said to her, do you have a faith at all? And she said, yeah, I do. Or I used to. And I said, well, I do. And I said, we've got 5 minutes. So I said, would you like me to pray for you? And we did that. And then basically I went, right, that's it. Let's crack on with our ladies. And we did. And we just got on with it. But at the end, she just said, thank you so much. It was like you were the right person at the right time. And just let her be her. Validated her and prayed for her, and who knows, but I think we can do little things like that. We need to be a bit bold and a bit outrageous and a bit risky and go for it, and people really don't mind at all. Another time I was up at the swimming pool, and there was this lady who had about 3 kids with her. Swimming's a nightmare, isn't it, with kids? I mean, anyone that goes, let's take them swimming. I think it's like one of those awful places, if I'm really honest. Anyway, I was there. I was there on my own. And this lady was quite stressed. She was really stressed. You could really tell that she was really huffing and puffing, banging the locker door, trying to ram everything in. One child was playing with the dirty, hairy bit in the channel. And everyone was just looking at this lady, and no one was kind of doing anything, just watching her and sort of just sort of dealing with their own goggles. And so I thought, so I went up to her. I said, can I help you in any way? And I don't know what I was going to do. I mean, she probably wasn't going to give me a child or anything. But she just said, well, yeah, I'm really stressed. My husband's in the pool. He's waiting. I've chucked my locker. Now I've not got the money. And I went, okay. I said, I think I've got 20p. Let me just have a little look. So got a 20p. She got it sorted, shut the locker, went on her way. And then this other lady came up to me and she went, that was really nice what you just did. And part of me just wanted to go, it's only 20p. And then I don't know why, but I was like, do you know what? I'm a Christian, and I just went for it and then went on my swim. But I think we can just do that and be a bit more confident in our witness, I guess, and encourage people. So I'm just going to wrap it up by saying, if you are here today, I think we're going to have communion, and you're struggling with something. God does see you. You matter to him. Even when you don't feel it, he's working. So let's trust him, trust in his timing, be open with each other, support each other, and it's all about Jesus. Thanks, Julie.